This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. President Reagan once called the Soviet Union an evil empire. Today, he announced he will go to Moscow for an election year summit conference at the end of May. From Washington, Wyatt Andrews reports.
It will be the longest Reagan-Gorbachev summit ever, 4.5 days in Moscow beginning Memorial Day weekend. Ironic that the president who came to power bashing the Russians becomes the only president to hold 4 one-on-one summits with the same Soviet leader.
But it has been agreed the Moscow summit will be from May 29th through June 3rd. June 2nd, I'm sorry. June 2nd.
But with all that settled, there is still the question of what the president and Soviet leader Gorbachev will actually do. The two sides are not close to signing any agreement on any subject.
Now our task is to prepare well for that summit so that the visit is substantive, productive.
Already there's been confrontation over the treaty to cut long-range nuclear warheads in half. Key obstacles include how to verify and count cruise missiles based on submarines, and how to prevent cheating on the number of intercontinental missiles that both sides would base on rail cars not positioned in silos. Just writing that treaty, if they ever agree, will be a job so complex, finishing it by May is a long shot.
There are very many difficult questions of a technical nature, also in verification, but in principle this can be done.
Talks on Afghanistan were just as tough. The Soviets still want out of Afghanistan, but insist that the U.S. cut all aid to the Afghan Mujahideen when the Russian troop withdrawal begins. The U.S. has refused, pushing the concept of symmetry, that U.S. aid to the rebels will end only when the Soviets cut their aid to the Kabul regime. This summit, unlike the 3 before it, has now been scheduled with none of the game playing and preconditions the Soviets have always tried to set in the past. With no agreement pending on Star Wars, Afghanistan, or the long-range missile treaty, Gorbachev just wants Ronald Reagan in Moscow anyway. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the State Department.
While the summit was being officially announced in Washington, in Moscow, Gorbachev was trying to deal with his worst internal domestic crisis. Gorbachev addressed the Supreme Soviet, which he likes to describe as the country's parliament, and tonight he ordered police to restore order in Armenia and Azerbaijan, and to crack down against increasingly rowdy Armenian dissidents. Barry Peterson is our man in Moscow.
After weeks of often violent demonstrations, tonight's Supreme Soviet resolution was an iron fist response, calling the protest intolerable, extremist, saying bluntly that authorities will take every measure to ensure public order. The resolution announced on Soviet television made no mention of changing national boundaries, the very demand Christian Armenians want. They are a minority in the Muslim Republic of Azerbaijan, and they insist their region be joined to neighboring Armenia. The protest led to dozens of deaths. The numbers are in dispute. Many see this as a result of growing demands by minority groups in the Soviet Union that have even seen some ethnic populations demanding independence. But the government response is an ominous warning to all non-Russian republics. There are populations growing so quickly that by the year 2000, Russians in this vast nation will be outnumbered by Georgians, Tatars, Ukrainians, and others.
It makes quite clear that you don't get your way in the Soviet Union by trying to put pressure on the central authorities.
Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev brought some of the problems on himself, with talk of more democracy, even saying during his visit to Yugoslavia last week that ethnic problems have developed because the Soviet Union's leaders have often ignored, not addressed them. Now, he must deal with the anger that may spill out if the rising expectations he fostered are met with force. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
We regret that our audio line out of Moscow was not as good tonight as it sometimes is. Negotiators for the Sandinista government and the Contra rebels went into a third and possibly crucial day of talks in Nicaragua today. The atmosphere of hope was briefly shaken by a radio report that the Contras possibly had broken the ceasefire, but that report was later denied by the Sandinistas. Correspondent John Blackstone is covering the peace talks.
At the border post negotiating site, news that the battlefield truce had been broken put the first major blemish on 3 days of optimism. The new fighting came in the same region near the Honduran border, where intense battles last week had threatened these talks. But even with the news today, the talks went ahead. For 3 days, the people of Nicaragua have been told their national wounds may be healing. Only good news has been coming from the southern border post, where Contra leaders cross into Nicaragua each morning. Official Sandinista radio has covered the talks in the spirit of a sports match, in which both sides are winning. The Nicaraguan community in exile has been watching closely.
I hope that the peace talk will bring peace.
The Sandinistas, they are not sincerity. They all the time lie.
At the Frontier Customs Station today, the Contras obliquely suggested there might not be a settlement, by saying these talks will be a success even without one.
After 9 years of separation, there was no communication, direct communication at the level of leadership between the Nicaraguan government and the resistance. This has represented a breakthrough.
Setting a deadline for disarming the Contra fighters is the most difficult issue in the negotiations. The Contras want democratic reforms in place before they disarm. The Sandinistas want the Contras to give up their weapons first.
A war that's taken perhaps 50,000 lives in 7 years of fighting will take more than 3 days of talks to bring to an end. But these 3 days have revealed a willingness to negotiate at the highest levels that until this week seem not to exist in this conflict. John Blackstone, CBS News, Supua, Nicaragua.
President Reagan's spokesman said today that the 3,200 U.S. troops will be pulled out of Honduras next week. They were sent in, some by parachute, last weekend when the U.S. accused Nicaragua of invading Honduras to attack Contra bases near the border. Some Latin American governments were sharply critical of that operation, and a new CBS News New York Times poll indicates the American people did not approve of it either. Asked if the United States should have sent troops to Honduras, a majority said no. A majority also said they were more worried about the U.S. getting into a war in Central America than they are about a communist takeover in that area. And Americans in the poll do not support President Reagan's request for new military aid to the Contras, although a majority would favor non-military aid. As for some of the key players in the Iran-Contra scandal, the American public is still of two minds about Oliver North, who is now facing criminal charges in a federal indictment. They were split down the middle on the question of whether President Reagan should pardon North if he is convicted. On the other hand, a majority felt that Vice President Bush is still hiding things that the public ought to know about his role in the weapons for Iran deal. As reported on this broadcast last night, Democratic presidential hopeful Michael Dukakis picked up the support of New Jersey Senator Bill Bradley today. Bradley said Dukakis is the only Democrat who can beat Republican frontrunner George Bush. This endorsement could carry clout in upcoming primaries in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. Senator Bradley is likely to be one of the select so-called superdelegates come the July convention. With it looking certain that no one will capture the nomination before Atlanta, Eric Ingberg explains tonight how this new party elite, the so-called superdelegates, can put one of the candidates over the top.
It's the kind of politics reform was meant to kill. The kind politicians certainly don't want played out on TV. But the Democrats, unlikely to get a nominee from the primaries, are headed for those smoke-filled rooms of days gone by.
I'll give you anything. Vice Presidency, Secretary of State, anything, if you throw me your votes on that next ballot.
Bill, they're scared. When candidates have to horse trade their way to the nomination, it's called a brokered convention.
They're already doing it. Candidates are already talking to people that they think can deliver blocks of delegates to them throughout this process.
Brokering, back when it was common, was done by powerful machine bosses who controlled delegates. No longer.
It's not going to be done in a smoke-filled room. First of all, nobody smokes anymore. And second, you wouldn't know who to put in the room.
Candidates are now the big brokers. They've got most of the delegates. It takes 2,082 to win the nomination. Here's one likely scenario political pros are wargaming. When the primaries end in June, the top two candidates will have more than 1,000 delegates each. 3 others hold large blocks. No one is close to a majority. There are 646 superdelegates, mostly up for grabs. Congressmen, party insiders, people who want this fight over as quickly as possible.
I think the superdelegates are very important. I think they could be the margin of victory for any candidate who gets the nomination.
If the bulk of these superdelegates can be locked up, the frontrunner is in position to pressure waffling delegates in opposing camps. His operatives send out a pointed message.
We have the votes. The train's leaving the station in about 3 minutes, and we'd like to have an answer before I hang up this phone. Are you with us or are you against us? Because we remember.
The pressure builds on such possible players as Puerto Rican Governor Hernandez Colon, who controls 40 uncommitted delegates, and the Illinois organization, holding 100 or more. Unspoken in this maneuvering is the grandest bargaining chip of all, second spot on the ticket.
You don't want to look as though you are buying off someone's delegates by offering that candidate the vice presidency. You want it to look a lot more dignified than that.
So the pitch to old foes is careful.
Let's unify the party and go into that convention without a dogfight so we can go on in November and win.
Unity is a code word for we might put you on the ticket.
Yeah.
The Democrats are keenly aware that unseemly deal-making at the convention in the glow of primetime television could hand the Republicans the election. So party officials are talking up the need to work out a deal before the convention opens in Atlanta.
It's more important to have a message for November than confusion in July, and I think that's what will happen. We'll have a first ballot nominee.
Anyone who looks close to the nomination will also hold another bargaining chip. Some of the losers will be staring at a mountain of campaign debts. The likely nominee can offer to help pay for these, and that'll be a tempting offer to any loser looking at months of chicken and pea fundraising dinners. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
A little primer on the brokered nomination process. A CBS News survey of likely Democratic superdelegates and how they're leaning right now indicates candidate Michael Dukakis ahead of the field in this category. CBS News surveyed only those who say they expect to attend the convention as superdelegates. Still to come on the CBS Evening News, correspondent Terry Drinkwater on a germ warfare testing plan that has a town up in arms. And Richard Roth on the odd notion that fear of failure can make people buy things.
If you're not using
This used to be my daughter Joanne's room. I remember when it was filled with clothes and records and shoes and socks and empty pizza boxes, all on the floor. I'd vacuum up entire blue jeans. Sometimes I'd forget what color the carpet was. I mean, when she was a kid and I used to hide Easter eggs in here, they stayed hidden for months. I just wrote Joanne an Easter card. I told her, every time I use this room, I miss her. I must be crazy.
For all kinds of loving ways to say Happy Easter, go to Hallmark, the place to go when you care enough to send the very best.
The odd notion that fear of failure can make people buy things.
To stack up the totals vitamin nutrition, it takes almost 3 bowls of Special K.
I'm eating shredded wheat.
You're eating 12 bowls.
Better loosen your girdle, Gloria.
Total has 100% of 9 vitamins and iron and is rich in calcium. That's a stack of nutrition.
In just 1 bowl.
I was a young boy who dreamed of great things, to bring a medal home to my country. And the dream came true. As an athlete, I was determined to do great things. Today, I still am. Now I'm an American citizen, a part of another team, a Dow, that helps to make medical surgery safer. And when this team wins, the whole world wins.
Dow lets you do great things.
A loss today in the Supreme Court for union members who go on strike. In a split 5-3 decision, the court upheld a federal law that says in most cases a household cannot become eligible for food stamps if a household member is on strike. Note, households already receiving food stamps are not dropped from the program if a member goes on strike. They're measuring the fallout tonight from the latest clash between angry residents of Utah and backers of a proposed expanded U.S. Army biological testing laboratory. The Army insists that this lab will be strictly confined to defensive research needed to safeguard against possible biological attack. But critics threaten to block the project, charging, quote, "We have been A-bombed, nerve gas." Terry Drinkwater reports on a bitter battle and the stakes involved.
At its Dugway Proving Ground, the Army says it must build a major new facility to test the most deadly germs used in biological warfare. Its old facilities here, the Pentagon argues, are fast becoming obsolete. But would the planned new labs be safe? Civilian scientists wonder.
They are building a facility which is equipped to handle the most dangerous organisms known to man and some that are as yet unknown.
The Army says it's a question of keeping up with Moscow.
We see some possibility out there as we look at what the Soviets are doing for developing some much more interesting weapons than we've had previously.
The new lab would be what the Army calls a level 4, designed to handle newly created germs which can cause diseases with no known cures. Utah used to welcome most military facilities, but the Army is having real trouble selling this one, even to the state's conservative governor.
I must, in good conscience, oppose construction of a biosafety level 4 lab at Dugway.
At the Army's hearing last night in Salt Lake City, scores sounded the alarm. What if there was an accident and deadly germs escaped from the proposed lab just 70 miles away? 20 years ago, 3,000 sheep were killed by leaking nerve gas from Dugway. Many here remember.
I'm sorry, but your track record is very, very poor.
Microbes have escaped every biological laboratory in this country. There's never been a fail-safe laboratory in this country's history.
If Dugway doesn't do it, who is going to do it? And I know what the dose is to create infection, and it couldn't happen.
But the opponents have money and lawyers.
We're going to have injunctions slapped on you until hell freezes over or until this facility is abandoned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
But in germ warfare preparedness, the Army vows not to surrender to these activists or to the Soviets. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Salt Lake City.
A second Texas community tonight is confronting an important and terrifying question that has been faced in other places. Are there murderers among the men who are supposed to keep the peace? Peter Van Sant reports.
Angry residents of Cleveland, Texas are accusing their police force of being outlaws, of killing handcuffed inmate Kenneth Earl Simpson during a struggle in his jail cell last Wednesday, and then lying to cover up the crime.
I just feel like they killed him back there. Just simple as that.
That he was murdered.
That he was murdered in jail.
You gonna tell us you can choke a man to death?
During a heated city council meeting, the medical examiner's report was read, fueling residents' fears that Simpson may have been choked to death.
It was holding the neck or...
Seven officers, half of Cleveland's police department, have been suspended with pay pending the outcome of the investigation. Both city officials and police are refusing to talk about the incident. All of the officers involved in subduing Simpson claim that he was alive when they left his jail cell and that they checked on him at least 3 times before discovering he was dead at about 4:30 in the morning. But the autopsy report establishes the time of death at midnight, the time the officers were struggling with Simpson.
He was already dead. Why do you need to check on a dead man 3 or 4 times? And he died like at 12 at night.
Listening to the officials talk about what happened, we've caught them in just so many errors.
The Cleveland case is the second in Texas this year where small-town police have been accused of killing an inmate.
I think there's always a increased problem with police brutality in small towns simply because the police forces are less professional.
The FBI is investigating the Simpson death, trying to determine whether half of Cleveland's police force took the law into its own hands. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, Cleveland, Texas.
Nothing should come between you and your pet except the Hearts 2-in-1 collar. The collar that kills fleas and ticks for 5 months. Keeps them off your pet and out of your home. Go ahead, hug, snuggle, tickle him. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar lets you get close to your pet without getting close to fleas and ticks. If you want to hug a happier pet and have peace of mind, get the Hearts 2-in-1 collar.
You're ready to sell your house? Call Coldwell Banker. We don't just tell you we'll do everything we can to find you a buyer. We guarantee we'll use 18 proven marketing techniques to sell your home. We guarantee it in writing. And we wouldn't give you that guarantee if we weren't confident of one thing. Coldwell Banker. Expect the best. We guarantee it. A member of the Sears Financial Network.
The Porsche engine in the Quaker State Indy car performs at a punishing 11,000 RPM. And the clean-running Quaker State with QSXer Protexer is the same oil you buy right off the shelf. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For indigestion, heartburn, and gas, nobody does as much as Malox Plus. Dose for dose, it neutralizes more than any regular strength antacid and dissolves gas. Nobody does as much as Malox Plus.
Israeli warplanes bombed Palestinian guerrilla bases in Lebanon today for the second time in a week. Lebanese reports said 2 people were killed, 15 wounded. Israel said all of its planes returned safely. In the occupied territories, Israeli soldiers arrested hundreds more Palestinians in a new drive to smash the 3-month-old Arab uprising. Correspondent Bob Simon is on the scene.
Control of the streets is the Israeli objective. Scores of troops were pouring into villages today trying to regain the initiative. Strategy: if you can't snuff out the fire, you can shove it off to the side. You can keep the flames low.
At this point, we reached relative tranquility.
Through a new menu of tough measures, restrictions have been eased on soldiers opening fire, on the army detaining Palestinian activists without trial for 6 months or more. New detention camps are sprouting up to accommodate the new prisoners. The Israelis say 3,000 are being held right now, 700 arrested in the last week alone. Shopkeepers on a partial strike for many weeks are now finding their businesses closed for good. Bethlehem's largest tourist shops gearing up for Easter have been welded shut. The owners would not cooperate with the Israelis.
They want us to be in front of the Palestinian world as traitors or collaborators with the Israeli government, and we are not.
This is what happens to collaborators, a young Palestinian killed by his neighbors, the latest in a series of executions. And this is what happens to Palestinians who attack collaborators. The Israelis blow up their houses. A dozen homes demolished over the last week. Lessons to entire neighborhoods. But what will the Palestinians learn? It may not be what the Israelis are teaching. As soldiers conduct more house-to-house searches, they find fewer Palestinians at home. The Israelis have had 20 years to study the territories, to compile maps and master lists. But these are the papers that matter today. 10 communiques issued over the last 3 months by the self-styled National Command of the Uprising, known here as the 10 Commandments. They are a prescription for life and behavior aimed ultimately at the complete separation of Palestinians from all aspects of Israeli life. The latest leaflet calls for an intensification of attacks on Israeli soldiers. A harder line today from both sides. Bigger and better built barricades separating the two peoples. Bob Simon, CBS News, Ramallah.
People have a nicer smile, a brighter day, walking shorter mile. People have a better time around a better Raisin Bran.
Raisin Nut Bran tastes better. Tastes better than Kellogg's, better than Post. It's got juicy nut-covered raisins and big, crisp flakes.
People have a better time around a Raisin Nut Bran.
The best tasting Raisin Bran.
Yesterday, Liz Garland bicycled 20 miles. Today, she'll pay for it.
Boy, what did I do?
That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin contains the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body aches, muscle pain, or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
There's one company that knows your home almost as well as you do. So when it comes time to sell, they're the people you should call. Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Service.
I've written a sort of educational graffiti with Old English oil. It moisturizes to help prevent drying and cracking, brings out wood's natural beauty in the glorious manner that befits my glorious manner. Old English helps prevent drying and cracking.
The government today offered 2 pieces of economic cheer. The Labor Department reported that falling energy and food costs in the month of February helped hold consumer prices to a modest 0.2% increase. The Commerce Department said revised figures show the economy expanded at a 4.8% annual rate in the last 3 months of last year. That was the fastest growth since the first quarter of 1986, and an indication that the economy quickly shook off effects of the stock market crash. But that 500-point stock market plunge left its effects elsewhere. There were canceled condo sales, collapsed careers, the small car purchase instead of the stretch limo, and Richard Roth found Black Monday is even adding a blue note to television's commercial jingle.
Watch out, executives, managers, beware. 5 months after the market crash, just when you thought it was safe to come out of the doldrums, Madison Avenue is warning, think again.
We made a mistake.
No, you're saying I made a mistake.
I went along.
It was my decision, right? And now you're criticizing.
It's a brave new world in the executive suite. High-anxiety commercial style. 30-second horror stories warning one mistake can ruin a career.
You bought us a $2 million phone system that doesn't work with anything else?
I call it slice of death, as opposed to the standard advertising slice of life, which was sunny scenarios of husband, hi honey, I'm home, where everything was cheery and things could be fixed by a $1.49 product. Today, Johnson, has a much larger problem. He just bought the wrong $21 million phone system.
But AT&T, which is reportedly spending more than $100 million this year to bury the old image of Ma Bell with ads that suggest the Grim Reaper, isn't the only advertiser capitalizing on corporate fear. In business, it seems, there are new minefields everywhere.
This morning, my boss comes storming into my office and yells, "Why did you switch from AT&T to MCI?"
The new ads, say the experts, are playing to that infirmity of the 80s, the malady we call stress.
If these systems involve a commitment to spending a lot of money, it would be impossible, if that's on your shoulder, not to have a sense of high visibility if something goes wrong, responsibility if something goes wrong, and walking around with the anticipation of what's going to happen to me if something goes wrong.
The commercials leave no doubt at all. The good times are over, the ad men are saying, in nightmares scored with ominous music. Tales of ruined careers, public humiliation, or even worse.
I could lose my dental plan.
Richard Roth, CBS News, New York.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Hurry, time is running out on Color Tile's biggest sale of the year. Your last chance to save up to 50%. Ceramic tiles, vinyl tiles, mosaics, even wall coverings. This stylish ceramic tile, just 59 cents. Venetian wall tile, 63 cents. Rich wood parquet floors, $1.40 to $1.56. And sundial Solarian, only $8.99 after rebate. Color Tile's biggest sale of the year. Come now and bring the beauty home. Hurry, sale ends Sunday, March 27th.
Introducing A1 poultry sauce with herbs, spices, and fruit, meant just for chicken. So A1 poultry sauce makes the most of chicken any way you make it.
These vegetables are the nation's leading seller. These are not. These are chosen by Del Monte for their consistent quality. These are not. Does your family deserve anything less? Del Monte, we grow quality.
Lucky for this diver, he has a thin, powerful seal. So thin it's virtually airtight. So powerful it even holds up to pressure. No, it's not on this diver's mask. The seal is on his dentures. Extra Hold Fast Teeth has a seal so thin yet so powerful, it's virtually airtight. For a hold that's closer to real than any ordinary adhesive, Extra Hold Fast Teeth, the extra hold seal that's closer to real.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, the other NCAA basketball tournament, the best women players in the country.
And Audrey Hepburn back from the African famine on CBS this morning.
This is CBS.